Somewhere between 1.5 and 2 million years ago, a human ancestor looked at another human ancestor and said something that wasn't true. Not by accident, on purpose. They knew the truth. They chose something else. That moment, whenever it happened, whoever it was, changed the entire trajectory of our species more than fire did, more than tools did, more than language did. Because the ability to lie doesn't just make you dangerous, it makes you human. And the science of how it got inside us is one of the strangest stories in the history of our own minds. To understand the first lie, you first have to understand what a lie actually requires. A lie requires something far more complex than language. It requires a brain that can hold two versions of reality simultaneously, the true version and the version it wants someone else to believe. Psychologists call this theory of mind. The ability to understand that other people have thoughts, beliefs, and knowledge that are different from your own. That what you know and what they know are two separate things, and that you can manipulate the gap between them. Most animals cannot do this. A dog that hides food is not lying. It is following an instinct. A chimpanzee that screams to distract a rival while stealing food is getting closer. But researchers are still divided on whether this is true deception or just learned behavior that happens to mislead. True lying, deliberate, calculated, theory of mind lying, requires a level of cognitive sophistication that almost nothing alive has ever achieved. Almost. Here's the number that changes everything. Researchers at the University of Massachusetts found that 60% of people lie at least once during a 10-minute conversation, an average of 3 lies per conversation. And when participants were shown recordings of themselves afterward, most of them were genuinely shocked. The lying was so automatic, so deeply embedded, that it happened without conscious decision. Which means somewhere along the way, deception stopped being a choice your brain makes and became something it does on its own. Social living is extraordinarily difficult. When you live in a group, when your survival depends on cooperation, on alliance, on knowing who to trust and who to fear, your brain has to run calculations of staggering complexity every single day. Who is my ally? Who is pretending to be my ally? What does that person know? What do they think I know? These calculations are so demanding that some researchers believe social complexity is the primary reason the human brain tripled in size over the last 2 million years. This is called the Machiavellian intelligence hypothesis. The idea is brutally simple. In a competitive social environment, the smartest individual is not the one who is strongest or fastest. It is the one who is best at predicting and manipulating what other minds believe. The brain didn't grow to solve physics problems. It grew to outthink other brains. And the single most powerful tool for outthinking another brain is deception. Every lie you have ever told is a product of 2 million years of social arms race. Your ancestors who could deceive survived longer, had more allies, got more food, raised more children. Generation after generation, the brain that could model other minds and manipulate them. 1. Lying is not a flaw in human nature. It is the engine of it. The part of your brain most associated with deception is the prefrontal cortex, the same region responsible for planning, self-control, complex decision-making, and abstract thought. Deception doesn't live in the primitive parts of your brain alongside fear and hunger. It lives in the part that does mathematics and writes poetry and imagines the future. Which means when you lie, you are not showing your worst self. Stone tools require planning, but not theory of mind. Burial of the dead, first seen around 300,000 years ago, suggests an understanding that other minds have experiences and emotions worth acknowledging. Cave art, appearing around 40,000 years ago, suggests a brain capable of creating one reality while living in another. In 2007, a team of researchers at the University of Portsmouth studied deception in great apes across multiple species. The frequency and sophistication of deception correlated directly with the size of the neocortex relative to the rest of the brain. The bigger the social brain, the more deception, which means the capacity for lying didn't appear suddenly in one individual at one moment. There was no first liar. There was a species that became increasingly capable of deception over hundreds of thousands of years until one day the behavior crossed a threshold, became fully intentional, fully calculated, fully aware of itself. And at that point, it was no longer instinct. It was a choice. There is a moment buried somewhere in human prehistory that nobody witnessed and nobody recorded. It happened inside a single brain, in a fraction of a second, when something clicked that had never clicked before. The realization that another mind could be made to believe something that wasn't real. That is the moment human history actually began. Every complex social structure humans have ever built depends on the management of what other people believe. Diplomacy is the management of what other nations believe about your intentions. Economics is the management of what other people believe about value. Even kindness. telling someone their cooking is good when it isn't, is a form of managed reality. A species that could only ever tell the truth could never have built any of this. The first lie was not the beginning of something dark. It was the beginning of something human. The beginning of the gap between reality as it is and reality as we imagine it could be. That gap is where art lives, where hope lives, where every story ever told lives. You lie because your ancestors who lied survived. You lie because your brain is sophisticated enough to model other minds. You lie because somewhere in the deep past, a mind complex enough to hold two versions of reality looked at the world and decided the version it wanted was worth more than the version that existed. Every civilization, every betrayal, every act of love that required saying something to protect someone from something, you will lie again today, probably without noticing. And when you do, somewhere very far back in the chain of everything that made you, something that was almost human looked at something else that was almost human. It worked. And the rest, as they say, is history.